from your vantage point, because I know you're paying attention to this football team as they go from a good team, a team that can get to the postseason, to a football team that can take the next step, take a leap from being a perennial playoff team to being a team that can win a Super Bowl. So now heading into the draft, what are the Lions' needs? Do you think the top three needs for Brad Holmes to try and add to this football team via the draft?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with the layup. It's clearly pass rushers. The Zadarius Smith stuff's been interesting. I know Brad's still been in contact with him, but when you look at just the NFC, and you can even say the AFC, but just the NFC, the Rams last year gave the Eagles the toughest fight. They did. And the thing the Rams did very well in the postseason was get after the quarterback. And they did that with some of their young players that they found not just in round one with Jared Verse, but round 1, 2, 3, and beyond. They've done a really good job drafting defensive linemen. And I think with Aiden being back off of that significant injury, I'm not worried about him. I'm not as concerned about Aleem either, even though it'll take some time. DJ, we know what he brings. It's really the other spot. It's Marcus Davenport. And I think he has, if you look at guys on the team, he's up there for most to prove. Can he get back to what he was in New Orleans, what the Lions saw in him when they first brought him on? But I think when you look at what they should prioritize in the draft, it's got to be edge. And I know Brad doesn't operate under what they need, but when you look at a class that is this deep with defensive linemen, the same year you need a defensive lineman, in a year you expect to win the Super Bowl, it's like the stars are aligning for them to go out and take one, I would assume, within the first 2 rounds. But besides that, you got to look at the guard spot, John, especially with Graham. I think he's another guy, speaking of guys that have a lot to prove. Graham last year coming off a pretty rough year, and he's not getting any younger. You found Mahogany, who's your future starter. He's on a rookie deal. But this is another class where you're going to have some really good guards taken in the first 2 rounds. I mean, Gray Zabel, you have Tyler Booker, Donovan Jackson. You could keep going throughout the entire draft. So I think those two, for me, are the top 2 needs for the Lions for the future. And then you could start looking at other positions like safety, wide receiver. You can go through maybe defensive tackle if Aleem's not going to be there right away. There's other things you can debate, but those 2, edge and guard, to me, John, the biggest and most important needs for the Lions. Although Brad doesn't draft on needs always, but that's the truth.
When you look at a lot of the early mock drafts, the mock drafts that you've put out, there's been a combination of edge rusher first in the first round or offensive lineman. So you get a sense of, okay, people understand the 2 biggest needs. Yep. If it was up to you, what would you prioritize? If you're looking at this draft, you're sitting, you're watching, you're going to be probably live streaming everything going on that night of the draft. What do you want to see? Do you want to see them fill the need along the offensive line, or do you want them to address the edge rusher position with the very first pick at number 28?
I think the preference for me is trade up and get a premier edge. I think everyone would be probably on the same. Everyone would be on board with that. But I'm starting, as we get closer to the draft, I think a more of a possibility, in my opinion, would be trading back potentially. I mean, you look at some of the guys here from 28 to 30, 40, there's going to be a similar tier of players that you can go and get. And we know Brad, usually it's trade up in drafts. He does that often. So I wouldn't be shocked if he trades up and goes and gets someone he really likes. They met with Shamar Stewart. That's a name you probably want to keep an eye out on. But let's say there is a James Pierce. I would love for them personally, although he doesn't fit, it's all preference, would love for them to take an edge in the first round, because I still believe, I think edge, you can argue the first round guys to the second round guys, even though they're similar, there's a little bit of a drop off, but I think there'll be a bunch of really good guards in round 2. So I would go edge and then guard, trade up for an edge, preferably.